Mike Flores. This is totally a non-religious type question, but I suppose it applies to literally everything we believe is a fact. I'm truly just interested in the technical aspect of the word fact and how it is applied in the world. I use Merriam-Webster as my source for word definitions, though Oxford Dictionary is about the same. I have a premise that you don't know for a fact what date you were born on. It's my opinion. Our parents can know our true birth date. However, we as individuals can only believe we know our own birth date based on information from others. We cannot prove when we were born without belief, nor have first-hand knowledge of the date we were born on, so it does not fit the dictionary definition of a fact. If you believe you know for a fact when you were born, please explain your reasoning. Okay, Mike, thank you for this epistemological, sort of philosophical question here. We're going to talk about facts and beliefs and what are these things. And I've tackled this stuff years ago, and looking at it again newly now, it's always a little bit of a brain twister messing around with this stuff. I try to keep it simple, and I try not to go down philosophical rabbit holes. And there are a lot of rabbit holes to go down when it comes to the debate or the ideas of facts and beliefs, or opinions, ideas, attitudes, emotions, all these various things that are part of our experience. To get right to the point here, so that I don't go wandering off into the hinterlands, you challenged me on this premise that you have about a birth date. And you do not believe, or you do not have a factual knowledge, I guess you're saying here. If you believe you know for a fact when you were born, please explain your reasoning. Okay, if I believe I know for a fact. Okay, well, I do know for a fact when I was born. And the basic problem that I have with the argument you've presented as you've written it, whether you intended this or not, all I have to go on is how you wrote it. And the way you wrote it basically implies or infers that a fact is something that has to be part of your lived experience and within your living memory in order for it to be a fact. Because you certainly did experience your birthday, and you experienced it on your birthday. So you did have a lived experience of that, but you're claiming because you can't remember it, it can only be a belief and it can't be a fact. I would challenge that idea or that premise, because there are all kinds of things that we take as facts that we have not had lived experience of and have no memory of whatsoever. I take it as a fact that George Washington existed as a real person, just like I exist as a real person. I take it as a fact, not a belief, that George Washington existed. The reason that I take it that way is because the threshold of evidence that satisfies my requirements of the threshold of belief, of acceptance, I guess I should say, really, just to differentiate it from belief, acceptance of a fact, of a true thing, of a thing that is either true or false. There's not a lot of gradation to a fact. It is. So I take it that it is true that George Washington lived. The reason I do this is because the mounds of evidence, from his picture on a $1 bill, to stories I heard as a child, to pictures of his teeth, to pictures of him, to tales of his exploits, to firsthand accounts of interactions with him, to his own writings, which we have available to us. All of these things combine to create an evidence-based case of factualness. It's true. He lived. We can prove it. We can prove it with all this evidence. That's what makes it a fact. It's not an opinion. It's not a belief. Okay. Remember, I sort of said, beliefs exist in your head and are infinitely malleable and changeable. Facts are true whether you believe them or not. Opinions are a dime a dozen. There's millions of them, and they are right, wrong, or neither. Facts tend to be in the realm of right or wrong. But the point I wanted to make there, of course, was the evidence based, right? You can the decision point on a fact, on accepting a fact as a fact, is your threshold of evidence, right? Your threshold of when am I going to accept this as true or not? What do I need to see? What do I need to hear? What do I need to experience in order for this to be accepted for me as an absolute, objective, true thing? I think that threshold varies from person to person and subject to subject, right? Atheists, for example, have a rather hardcore idea of evidence and facts when it comes to the existence of God, that believers do not, right? Believers have faith, and for them, their faith is the fact. And that's kind of how most believers, as I've experienced and talked with them, look at their faith. Is the factual thing that gives them their belief in this higher power, and the fact of their faith is incontrovertible. I mean, it's right there. They do have faith. That's a factual statement. What they have faith in, whether that faith is justified or rational or reasonable or not, is a whole nother thing, right? But the fact of their faith is not a question. Anyway, that's about as deep or far or, whatever involved as I think I need to get with answering that without going off on some epistemological tangent or something. But that's my reasoning. As far as when I was born, kind of the same thing as the George Washington example. I have a birth certificate. I have a photo, evidence of my mom holding me. I have my mom telling me. I have my dad telling me. They were both there. Of course, I was there. I mean, I clearly was born. As far as the day I was born on, I have evidence. And the evidence that I have is pretty convincing evidence, right? I've literally contacted the hospital where I was born and got them to send me a new birth certificate. So it's not just some old, crumbly piece of paper. I've got a new one. So anyway, for my threshold of acceptance, right, of evidence, that evidence does the trick. And for me, it's a fact. It's not a belief. It's not something I have to question or wonder about. Or, if somebody were to challenge me, I could provide them with this evidence, show it to them, convince them in the same way I've been convinced. And there you go, right? It's not necessarily that facts are relative to one person or another. In other words, your facts and my facts can't be wildly different. When I talk about this threshold of acceptance, I'm talking about how individuals treat information. The objective exterior reality of the factualness of a thing exists whether you accept it or not. So, we could go there. We could take it to that level, but I just want to say that and kind of step away from it and hope that communicates what I'm trying to communicate. If it doesn't, if I'm off somehow or I'm missing something, Mike, go ahead and let me know. But that's my answer to your question.